Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our virtual class. By the way, I'm Jamalia Inero, and I'm your MAPI teacher this morning. Our topic this morning is all about Neoclassicism period 1780-1840. This is our objectives. A defines the Neoclassic period, identifies the representative artists from Neoclassic period, analyzed art elements and principles in the productions of work following the styles of Neoclassicism. Neoclassicism, 1780-1840. The word neoclassic came from the Greek word neos, meaning new, and the Latin word classicos, which is similar in meaning to the English phrase first class. The Western movement in decorative and visual arts was called Neoclassicism. It also applies the literature, theater, music, and architecture that were influenced by the classical art and culture of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. The neoclassical movement coincided with the 18th century Age of Reason, also known as the Age of Enlightenment. The art style in this period was brought about by the renewed interest in Greek and Roman classic classics. Neoclassical art pieces such as paintings, sculpture, and architecture generally portrayed Roman history, which elevated the Roman heroes. Characteristics: portrayal of Roman history, formal composition, the use of diagonals to show the peak of an emotion or movement versus a regular movement, local color, overall lighting, classic geostructure. Classicism. This is the renewed interest in classical ideas and forms that European and American society through idea, politics, and fine arts, the 18th and 19th century. It also refers to the art forms created after but inspired by the ancient times. This period was derived from the Classicism movement. Classicism. This is the period in which Greek and Roman principles and styles influence were reflected in society. Be careful not to interchange the two terms. Classicism refers to that art forms produced in antiquity or inspired by its afterward, while New Classicism always refers to the art forms inspired by ancient times but created later. Neoclassical painting. Neoclassical artists embraced the ideals of order and moderation in which artistic interpretations of classic Greek and Roman history were restored to realistic portrayals. Neoclassical painters give great importance to the costumes, settings, and details of classical subject matter without adding distracting details but with as much historical accuracy as possible. Neoclassical artists. There are a number of neoclassical artists from Europe and the United States. Below are some of them. Jacques Louis David, 1748-1825, France. Jacques Louis David was an influential French painter in the neoclassical style and considered to be the preeminent painter of the era. His subjects of paintings were more on history. Famous artworks: The Death of Marat, image from Royal of Fine Arts of Belgium. David's masterpiece shows the portrayal of a revolutionary martyr. This is a painting of murdered French revolutionary leader Jean-Paul Marat. Next is Napoleon cruising the Alps. Image from Musée National du Château Malmaison, the painting that shows a strongly view of the real cruising that Napoleon and his army made across the Alps through the Great St. Bernard Pass in May 1800s. Jean-Auguste Dominic Ingres, 1780-1867 branch. Ingres was a pupil of Jacques Louis David. He was influenced by Italian Renaissance painters like Raphael, Nicolas Poussin, Botticelli, and his mentor Jacques Louis David. His paintings were usually nudes, portraits, and mythological themes. He was regarded as one of the great exemplars of academic art and one of the finest old masters in his era. Famous artworks, portraits of Napoleon on the imperial throne. The painting depicts Napoleon in his decadent coronation costume, seated upon his golden encrusted throne, head resting upon smooth ivory balls. During his reign, the painting was owned by the Corps Legislative, which was a part of the French legislature. The painting was believed to be commissioned by Napoleon as King of Italy. Next is the Apotheosis of Homer. The painting was a state commissioned by Charles X to have him remembered in the building works of the Louvre. The painting depicts an image of Homer receiving all the brilliant men of Rome, Greece, and contemporary times. Next is Neoclassical Sculptures. The Neoclassical period was one of the great age of public sculpture. Artists looked to Roman styles during the time of Alexander the Great for inspiration as well as to mimic their style. Antonio Canova, 1757-1822, Italy. Canova was a prolific Italian artist and sculptor who became famous for his marble sculptures that delicately rendered nude flesh. He opened the idea for portraying these great sexual pleasures by using pure contours with his mythological compositions. Famous artworks, the Psyche Awakened by Cupid's Kisses. Photo taken by Eric Honor, 2007. Next is Canova, Washington, a Canova photo taken by Radio Fan, 2011. Next is Bertel Thorvaldsen, 1789-1838, Denmark. Thorvaldsen was the first internationally acclaimed Danish artist. He executed sculptures of mythological and religious themes characters. His famous artwork is this. Christ B. Thorvaldsen, a marble sculpture's image of resurrected Christ currently located at the Thorvaldsen Museum. And next is a sculptures of the Dying Lion in Lucerne, Switzerland, that commemorates the Swiss guards who were massacred in 1792 during the French Revolution. Neoclassical architectural styles started in the mid-18th century and turned away from the grandeur of Rococo style and the late Baroque. In its purest form, Neoclassical architecture was a style principally derived from the architecture of classical Greece and Rome, and the architectural designs of the Italian architect Andrea Palladio. Types of Neoclassical architecture: temple style. Temple style building design was based on an ancient temple. These buildings were uncommon during the Renaissance as architects of that period focused mainly on applying classical elements to churches and modern buildings like palazzos and villas. Many temple-style buildings feature a peristyle, a continuous line or of column around a building, a rare feature of Renaissance architecture. Most famous temple-style buildings of the Neoclassical age. So this is the example of their styles. This is Palladian style. Palladian buildings were based on Andrea Palladio's style of villa construction. Some of the buildings feature a balustrade, which is a railing with vertical supports along the edge of the roof. There are vertical supports within a balustrade known as balusters or spindles. It is also a classical method of crowning a building that has a flat or low-lying roof. One of the famous architects in the era was. Next is Robert Adam, 1728-1792, Britain. He was known as a Palladian architect of the Neoclassical who designed two well-known American civic buildings, the White House and the United States Capitol. He had also designed many countries' houses. So this is the example of their works. Classical block style. The building features a rectangular or square plan with a flat roof and exterior rich in classical detail. The exterior features a repeated classical pattern or series of arcs and or columns. The overall impression of such a building was a huge, classically decorated rectangular block. Classical block aesthetic was also known as Vieux arc styles, since it was developed principally by the French École des Beaux-Arts or Schools of Fine Arts. Classical block architecture also flourished in the United States, particularly in New York. So, this is a famous architect of this architectural style, were Henry Labrouste. His masterpiece is the library. The Charles Garner, he designs the most famous classical block of all, which is the Palais Garner. Other buildings in classical block style. So New York Public Library. So this is the examples of the classical block style. Okay, any clarifications, suggestions about our topic this morning? So if none, thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel www.gaitf.com and our LCMS. Thank you.